All right, everybody, it's 5:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Las Vegas City Council. Can we have a roll call, Cassandra?
Certainly, Mayor. Mayor Louis Trujillo,
Present.
Councilor David Romero,
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez,
Present.
Councilor Michael Montoya,
Present.
Councilor David Ulivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to just give a little bit of reflection today in our country, of course, Inauguration Day. It was a beautiful ceremony, and it was very refreshing to see that Biden was sworn in and that there wasn't any violence at the Capitol, which was wonderful. And in the whole spirit of things, we just joined with our leaders at the federal level. It was really good to see Teresa Leger Fernandez at the inauguration, and our delegation was also there. But super proud of our nation on this day, and we look forward to coming back to a civil presidency. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, next item on the agenda is approval of agenda, and I have an amendment to the agenda.
Very well.
On our presentations, the first presentation needs to be postponed for February 10th. That is a presentation by Brian Berg. He was unable to present this evening.
Very well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion with that removal of the item for postponement.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, a second by Mr. Ulivari. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The agenda has been approved. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the public input. I have no public input this evening. Moving on to the mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
I don't have any at this point. I will have a brief tribute to Ms. Teresa Fulgenzi at our next city council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item is councilors' reports.
Councilman? I mean,
Mr. Mayor?
councilors, sorry. Mr. Romero, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just, and I know we have, I think we have Chief on. I just had received, plenty of calls, and I'm just curious as to curfew violations. Do we have a report on any of that yet, Chief?
At this time, I don't, Mr. Councilman. I know. I'm assuming we're probably at zero. I don't think they've cited anybody. That's what I'm doing right now. But
and I know we had not called it citations. We had called it warnings. So we're probably had documented warnings.
I'd have to check. I'll check.
Okay. And the reason why I bring it up, Mayor and Chief, is that there's been a lot of concern that a lot of crime is happening during these curfew hours, and they're basically saying that our curfew isn't working. So I just wanted to, see if there's more that can be done. That's kind of the concern.
Are you able to send me where this crime is being committed? Because we're not really having any calls for service, maybe 10 to 12 calls for service per night. So if our officers are going out there, if they're not reporting the crime, we can't really address it at that time. So I don't know. I'll check our statistics, but we really haven't had any burglary reports, or we've had violent crime, but those are the crimes that occurred this week. I'm sorry. But other than that, if you could get me locations and we could check into that.
And kind of some of it was having to do with the shootings and stuff. But I mean, that's kind of what I was told. So, okay.
Yeah. Shooting was New Mexico State Police. They were involved in that shooting. The officer involved shooting that happened on Independence, and I believe that was at 9 o'clock. And then our shooting happened around 11. But curfew isn't. We haven't reinstated it. Is that correct, Mayor?
I just signed it today. It will be in effect as of tomorrow.
And I know that's no excuse, but the violent crimes, you know, we are maximizing our officers out there. I have as many officers I can during the nighttime and during the daytime. We've maximized everybody to be put out there.
Okay. All righty. The other thing I have on my counselor's report, and I know Hendrickson is on tonight, or just Bill. So kind of my concern, or not concern, that's been brought to my attention, and I don't know if this is something that, you know, maybe we have to talk in executive. It's having to deal with the Fram building. And Dr. Taylor, I don't know, is there something that Main Street can do to help? I know that they're doing a fundraiser. Is there anything that Main Street can do to help him with it? I know he doesn't have the money to, he's willing to do whatever it takes, but of course he don't have the money. Is there something that Main Street can do, or is that something that we can give direction to Main Street? Or
Main Street's been involved with this project. They've met with Mr. Fram. They've provided some kind of advice and counseling. The problem is that the building is the fire chief has gone out, and the fire marshal, and they've determined that the building is a hazard and a risk to the neighboring buildings and to the public. And the cost of addressing this building is quite large. And so I think just getting a new roof on it and fixing the floor is going to be in excess of something like $100,000 is what I've heard. So, you know, they are trying to find ways to provide counseling to him, and maybe ways that he might be able to reach out to different organizations to help him raise that money, but it's going to be very difficult.
Because if you recall, I was in a meeting. It was you, myself, Bill, and the code enforcement officer. And at that time, this was, I think, October. And at that time, everything was okay. He was working on the roof. So I don't know, did that change from October till now to as drastic as it is? Because I remember asking specifically the structure of it, and they said that it was okay. It was just the roof. He was going to tarp it. They didn't want it to continue to deteriorate. So I'm just curious as to, did something drastic happen, an evaluation of the building that changed, or from then?
No, I think that there was when the fire marshal got involved, and when they looked at the status of the building, it wasn't something that could be done just without plans, without approved plans from an architect. And so they were trying to get him some pro bono help from architects in designing how to fix the problem, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. All right. If you can kind of keep me updated on that, Dr. Taylor.
Sure, no problem.
And last but not least, Mayor, I just like to thank Public Works, Parks, all those that they did an excellent job with the snow removal. I think as Councilor Montoya and I met earlier today on some other stuff at City Hall. The streets were clean and they did a heck of a job. So I think they deserve some kudos. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. I do want to say, thank you to everybody who worked so hard, getting that snow removed. I've had a lot of comments, good comments regarding how good of a job they did. So once again, to Public Works, thank you so much. The other issue I just want to touch on is that, similar to Mr. Fram's problem with those buildings, we are going to get more people who are going to come to us and say they can't afford to do this, or they can't do this with that building, or they can't. With these new ordinances, it's pushing those people with vacant buildings to do something with them. So this is going to be an ongoing situation. So, but I am interested in what happens with that building as well. Any other council members?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just mention that I'd like to thank the city streets, public works, but also the parks department and also the utilities department. I believe they all went in a joint effort on the snow removal process that took place, and you saw people, employees with shovels. Hopefully next year they'll be riding bikes with a blade on front of it, or other means of cleaning the sidewalks and so forth. But I think everybody came together, and I thank you, Maria, because that was your direction, I believe. It had to be yours and Daniel's. But you guys all did a good job. I went out there, and there was people all over town doing their job, cleaning sidewalks, parks, and so forth. So we really, really do appreciate all the departments coming in together as one city to clean our city up on the snow removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Yes, thank you to all the workers who are out there. I said public works, but it was everybody from utilities to. And Maria, if I did also see them with shovels and brooms. If there's a need for any of those four-wheelers or those, more equipment for snow removal, maybe it's time to look at that. But they did a fantastic job. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Elaine.
I just also want to reiterate regarding Councilman David Romero's comments, because I also had received calls from residents, not only in regards to the FRAM building, but also the Navajo Textile building. And I relayed the comments to him, and I wanted to reiterate that. And I wanted to be more open and transparent. And I think a couple of things is I'd like to, one, see an updated report on the ordinances. We received one, I want to say in August, September, and could we get an updated report? And then second, there's a perception out there, whether we agree or disagree, that individuals are pushing these owners into court so that outsiders, other people, whoever these outsiders are, can buy their property because these are prime properties. So that's my concern. And Bill, that's why I would also like to see, can Main Street, can they work with grants? I mean, we have so many grants out there that we can apply for in assisting these owners to help restore these buildings. And that way, if they choose to sell it, that's under their own accord. I just don't want to see the city forcing them to do it.
So Councilor, just let me comment on the thing about the rumors that you might be hearing. We have not gotten a single call, not one, from people saying that they were interested in the FRAM building or that the neighboring properties were pressing. This has been an ongoing, this property has been something that people have been concerned about for over a decade. And so we're just trying to move forward with it. We're not trying, we certainly have no agenda to do anything but to try to help Mr. FRAM if possible. But we're trying to find resources, but we haven't been able to find those kinds of resources. And they're going to require deep pockets on the part of somebody.
Mr. Bear.
Mr. Montoya?
Mr. Taylor, may I suggest that you give us a report every other month from code enforcement on the structures, and I mean all structures in the city, because I know we have a listing of probably 40 at least, the homes that are burned down, and give us an update every other month, and that way we can limit the questions and we can give some response to the citizens when they bring it up to us. No.
Mr. Montoya, can you be more specific about the structures? Are you talking about all vacant properties that they're identifying?
Well, all properties that the city of Las Vegas has red tagged, for instance. That's commercial or residential. or even vacant lands. Because I know code enforcement and economic development has been real busy sending out notices and giving out red tags and so forth. But we as mayor and council haven't heard anything as an update as to where we're at on that. And it'd be nice to hear from code enforcement now that we do have a code enforcer supervisor to let us know and give us an update on all these properties, what's going on, what their status is, and how are we helping them, or if we're not helping them, or what to expect when it comes to mayor and council to go demolish one, or what the plans are, and an update basically on the overall of our all the structures in the community, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Olivari?
I do agree with Councilman Montoya because we haven't had a report since I think a couple of months on all the citizens that have been cited, not cited, and I think we need to see that to see where our council, all the council needs to see how many citations have gone out or haven't they issued. So I would like to see a report on that if we can get us one, Mr. Manager.
No, we'd be glad to do that, Councilor Romero, Councilor Montoya, Councilor Olivari. We'd be glad to do that. And the last report that I think went out from the Community Development Department, they did list in broad numbers how many red tags there were, how many buildings had, how many properties been fixed up. We'd be glad to make a presentation to the council about each of these projects.
Thank you. Next order of business.
We have presentations, Mayor, not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. Our presentation by Natasha Martinez with Northern Regional Housing Authority, reporting on the status of 15 housing units that have had clouded titles and have recently been released. Ms. Natasha?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
I think we skipped city manager's report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right,
All
Mr.
right, sorry about
Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Taylor?
I handed out physical copies of the report to several. I'm going to share it now on the screen. Oops, that's not the right one. Hold on just one second. Okay.
Was that in our packet, Bill, or you sent it to us via email?
No, this is it now. I put it on people's desks that were physically at the meeting, but this is the bullet report here. So I'd just like to go through these real quickly. The first one is that Community Development reported they had received 5 new grants for various projects, and I think you're familiar with most of them. They've included the farmers market, etc. And we've been discussing about how we can move very quickly on getting these funds obligated or spent, not because they're at risk, they're in severance tax bonds, and so they're not at risk, but we want to be able to make the case that when we get money from the state legislature, we actually move quickly to implement them. So that is ongoing. And the second thing is just the people have been commenting about the TV shows. We just had the Roswell TV show was filmed on the plaza last week, and we're going to have a new show called The Outer Range, and that's going to start filming at 6th and Douglas in February. We've had several discussions about this My Civic 311 app, which allows all of our residents to report problems like stray dogs or abandoned cars, potholes. That's going to be rolled out by the end of the month, and we're very close. In fact, we've just about got it ready. We're just doing a little bit more testing on that. And then I just wanted to do a shout out to the Carnegie Library staff, and they found ways. They were innovative and found ways to provide a service to the public, curbside service, so people continue to exercise their minds. And, those efforts have been recognized by the general public, and they even got a thumbs up in the optics. So I thought that was something we should acknowledge. Finance staff and I have been working on looking at where we are with the budget. You're going to hear a report pretty soon from the finance director. Right now, things look pretty good. In fact, we know that our revenues are higher than we had anticipated, or we had budgeted for. Our expenditures are a little lower, so we're going to be doing that mid-year budget adjustment. We'll be presenting that to you at the next meeting in February, and we'll be providing some options for the council to consider. So the next item is, we've heard from a lot of people that on occasion, and I hope it's not that often, but some of our customer service sometimes needs improvement. And so Donna Castro is working on doing a customer service training for all of our employees, and so she's looking at various options. She's kind of weighing the quality of the training against what we can actually afford. And then Stephen Aragon and I met yesterday, and on the Rodriguez Park plans, we had some good discussions about that at our last meeting. So Stephen has made a good start on with the analyzing the plans, what it costs, what the economic benefits are, what the fiscal implications are for the city, and he's going to be making a presentation about that at our next meeting. And then the last thing I have on here is, because I know everybody's worried about water. I mean, I think that the snow might have helped things a little bit, but as of the end of December, our total water storage at both of the dams and Story Lake was about 53% of capacity. And storage at the same time last year was 57.5%, so we're down a little bit. Next month it may tell a different story as we see this the snow that we got. It was a good snow runoff into our rivers and then into our storage, and hopefully we get a lot more of those. But that's where we are right now. And
thank you, Mr. Manager. We appreciate everything that you do. Next order of business, Cassandra. Thank you, Bill.
thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, moving on to our presentation by Natasha Martinez with Northern Regional Housing Authority. It's Natasha.
Welcome back, Natasha.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. I know I was able to do it earlier. So, there it is. Okay. Thank you guys for having me tonight. And today we're just going to talk about the history of clearing the titles and the clouded titles that we did get cleared with the recent repayment agreement and the merger and everything else that we've done. Just so you know, tonight with us, we have Julian Barella from Housing and Urban Development, as well as our executive director for Northern Regional Housing, Terry Baca, is also here. So if you have any questions for them at the end, also feel free to ask. So a few of the things that you guys hear all the time but may not know exactly what they are is a clouded title. A clouded title is property law that says that there's a title for a piece of property or some sort of tangible asset that isn't clear. Like there's a lien on it, it wasn't transferred all the way, there was a mistake in the legal description, something like that. So it clouds it, so there's no clear title and you can't get title insurance on it. A cloud can be a claim, an unreleased lien, an encumbrance, something that invalidates or impairs the title itself. A declaration of trust under U.S. law is a document or an oral statement appointing a trustee to oversee the assets being held for the benefit of one or more other individuals. So the benefit, of course, is our constituents here. The DOT is between the Housing and Urban Development and the City of Las Vegas. So the City of Las Vegas was entrusted these properties to oversee the assets from Housing and Urban Development. So here's just a little bit of a timeline of how everything happened, how it came into play. In 2001 and 2002, the Las Vegas Housing Authority started a 39-unit turnkey 5H program, so a home ownership program. They started the progress. The units were getting turned, they were getting rehabilitated, changed from duplexes to single family units. There's a lot of work that is entailed with that. Then in 2004, the units in the program were starting to be sold. Within this, 15 of these units were sold to a program called Housing Enterprises Incorporated. At this time, Housing and Urban Development found discrepancies and halted the project as the buyers were not being vetted for eligibility correctly. So in order to qualify for these homes, these buyers needed to be qualified. So they had to be low income, they had to be from this area, and they had to fit the household size. So if it was a 3-bedroom, they had to fit HUD standards for a 3-bedroom home. And then in 2004 and 2005, the units that were completed and sold to eligible families, they did partial releases. So HUD did release all of the units that were audited and found to be sold to eligible families. Those that weren't did not get the partial releases out. So this was kind of where those 17 units came into play. 15 of them were the 15 that were sold to Housing Enterprises Incorporated, and 2 others were directly sold from the city to 2 individual families. So those 2 individual families did not fit the criteria, or they weren't vetted correctly and didn't pass the little test to qualify for these houses. In 2007, Housing and Urban Development asked that an audit of the program be conducted. So because of all of the discrepancies that were found and overlooked, and then they wanted to know where the proceeds were coming from and what happened to the proceeds. In 2008, an audit was conducted by an independent auditor. At that time, it was Moss and Adam, and they found that the proceeds from the 5H program were also spent on non-program eligible expenses in the amount of $611,000. So this was where they bought a church. There were other things that were paid for that shouldn't have been paid for out of this homeownership account. And just like every grant, every program, there's stuff you can spend on and there's stuff that you can't spend on. Well, $611,000 that was in the homeownership account was spent on stuff that it shouldn't have been spent on. Between 2008 and 2014, there was multiple discussions between the city, the Housing Authority, and Housing and Urban Development to try to figure out how to clear these titles, how to move forward with the dilapidated units, because once they pulled the funding on the homeownership project, the units that were supposed to be, that $611,000 that was supposed to be spent on rehabbing those units was spent on something else. You know, just trying to get those units up to par so that they could be to a rent standard. It was just multiple conversations between 2008 and 2014. In 2015, we came up with a repayment agreement, kind of like a good faith agreement. This agreement wasn't like the repayment agreement that we just got approved. This repayment agreement was just for the expenses that were in that audit. So just for those proceeds that were found in that audit, that they said, you know, were spent ineligibly. So now they said, try to make the Housing Authority whole, bring the money back, try to work on that. And that's why I know a lot of you guys in the report would ask why our expenditures were so low. Was because we were building up that one line item so we could rehabilitate houses as we were getting money in. They also gave us some provisions and guidance as to how to clear those other titles. Researching the homeowners, trying to find out if there's any way we can get their tax forms from back when they purchased the unit to see if they were eligible, their family composition, proof that they lived in Las Vegas, proof that they were from Las Vegas, that kind of proof, I guess, to get these releases. In 2016, we did get one released. This was one that when we found it, the only criteria that this individual did not meet was the family composition. So that was the only portion of the whole program that they did not meet. And Housing and Urban Development, just based off of, they checked all the boxes except for that one, agreed to release that one unit or that one home. And that was 2,400, I feel, Yucca. And then in 2017, we had another homeowner that could not refinance, could not sell, and offered to sell it back to us. And that was when it got purchased back. And that was 2412 Choya. So, and then in 2017, Housing and Urban Development. So it's kind of like a lottery system, I think. I'm not exactly sure how it goes, but they selected Las Vegas Housing Authority to do a compliance review. So basically they're gonna say, is the Housing Authority following all of the rules and provisions that are set forth for the grants and the money that was given to us? Is the management managing the program the way that it's supposed to? Like, are all of the statutes being followed, all the resolutions? Well, we had, I think, gosh, I want to say like 27 findings. There was findings on the city management and administrative side. There was a few on the governance side, and then there was some on the housing program. In 2018, we submitted a binder full of responses. After we submitted these responses, there was, I believe, all of the housing program, because we were given direct guidance, got cleared. But there was some on the city management and administrative side that were left unresolved. And there was also one on the governance side that was left unresolved as well. So that kind of stayed there. So in 2018 also, so while this whole thing is going on and we're trying to resolve these findings, upper management asked our headquarters for a quality assurance audit. So they wanted to make sure that the field office's compliance review was fair and adequate to the program itself. At this time, our upper management officials at the city spoke directly to headquarters and to the regional office. So the field office and our office really didn't have much information about what was going on, besides the fact of what we would get that we were told to provide to them or anything like that. So we don't know what information happened between 2018 and 2019. Mm-hmm. And I know we were asked at every council meeting for an update, but we weren't given anything. And when we requested it, they told us it would go directly to city administration. In 2019 was when we did get the letter of action and the report that was issued from the QAS audit. The regional director and the field office director, or the acting field office director, I'm not sure which one came at that time, met with the, at that time, city manager, I believe possibly the mayor or acting mayor, and the acting finance director. And they got the report together and we presented it to the council. There was lots of talk back and forth about what to do at that time. In 2020, I think this was probably August. This was when this board was all there. I believe it was after the election. That is when we started talking about transferring the housing authority. And with that whole transfer process also came the entering into the repayment agreement based off the quality assurance audit numbers to get that liability off your books little by little. And it also included in here, this was the big one, to release those clouded titles, those 15 properties that needed to get released. And now, resolution, we just last week recorded all of the releases for the following addresses. So all of these addresses were clouded and now they are free and clear. These titles are, the DOT is completely released off of them. The legal descriptions are done, and we are basically, all of these constituents can now refinance their homes, sell their homes, leave their homes in a, if they pass away, that was part of the problem too. If they pass away, their families can do something with this property. So it was a really, really big deal, and it takes the liability off of the city for lawsuits. And this last part is just a thank you. I want to thank the mayor and council for all of their support in getting this finally to a place where it's cleared and these people can be happy. Also for getting into this repayment agreement so that the program can be made whole and that the program here in Las Vegas can thrive and get additional funding and everything else that is needed from this program. There's lots of people, all of the attorneys that were involved, Mr. Gallegos, Mr. Aaron, Mr. Baca, like everybody that's contributed. I just really want to thank everybody. It's been a big deal and a long time coming. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Natasha, thank you, and thank you for all your support, and thank you for the good working relationship that we've reestablished with your organization, and for all the support that the regional people have been working with us for a long time on this. And I personally think that I'm very happy that this is the night that this happens, and we're at a good point. This is years and years of interaction and stuff. But personally, I'd like to thank you, Natasha, for your leadership, and I'd also like to thank Mr. Baca and Mr. Barella for their continued support with these issues.
Thank you, and thank you guys all. Like I said, this was huge, and not only did it save us, but it saved the city lots of time in court as far as any sort of lawsuits went, anything like that, because these homeowners were getting to a point of frustration.
Yep. Well, thank you for that, Natasha. I'll open it up to any comments or concerns. Mr. Barella or Mr. Baca, if you have any comments.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Romero?
Yes, I don't know who would answer this, if it would be Jesus or Dr. Taylor. Where are we with the transfer of assets, that belong to housing, that should go with housing? Is there a timeline that we're looking for that transfer of those assets, or what's the holdup?
So, Counselor, let's see. I think Jesus can answer, but he's been working very closely with Natasha, and I've seen them huddled in his office, and I think we're very close to making all of the necessary, taking all the necessary steps for that transfer.
Okay, and I guess my next question would be to, I don't know if Terry or Natasha, is how much longer are we looking at where the city would completely be out of the picture? I mean, not that I want to push it away, but I know, once you guys are able on your own, then
I can answer that. We're shooting for a goal of actually having everything in probably the next 30 days. So probably middle of February is what, once we get all the assets transferred over and finalize everything and be sure that that all the books are in shape, that we feel comfortable with them and everything at that point. Obviously, as of January 1st, the program did officially transfer over to the Northern Regional Housing Authority. But there is some any balances we need to get corrected, and Natasha is working with the staff there in Vegas to get that done. And I want to do a shout out to Natasha on that also. The getting those clouded tiles cleared up was her passion, and she really worked hard to do that. And I know she's been working hard on that, and that's kind of been number one priority for now. And then we're going to look at the assets and transferring that other information over also. So that's our goal for the middle of February.
And that's why.
And I think that
bring that up. Go ahead. No, that's why I bring it up. Is I know we're already going into almost another year, almost another fiscal year, and I just want to make sure that you guys are not that you want to kick you away or anything, but I think you could do more, like we continue to say, within the region itself versus us being in the middle of it. And I just, the sooner the better, and whatever it takes. I would just ask Dr. Taylor and Jesus, please get on. That's my last comment.
And we are getting wonderful cooperation with the staff at the city, so it's working well.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
I would just like thank you, Natasha, for all your hard work. I know that probably if you wouldn't have been there, probably this wouldn't have gotten done. Let me put it that way. And then the other thing is, we got to recall that this is a issue that was there lingering for 20 years. That's a long time. I want to give kudos to the mayor and council because they took this bull by the horn and did what they had to do in order to save our housing for our low income in our community. This was monumental, maybe not a popular one, but we did it. And I'm glad that we're in the situation that we're in, even though we owe that money back. I guess lessons learned the hard way. But thank you, Natasha, and thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Mr. Baca.
Yes, thank you also.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Montoya. And thank you all. Thank you. Next order of business, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor, next order is a finance report. We have Jesus Baqueta.
Cassandra.
Yes, sir.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I'm leaving the chambers momentarily. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, the report is for December, which is mid-year, so everything should be right at 50%. The general fund revenue is at 56%. The expenditures are at 43%. And the surplus for the general fund as of December is $536,660. The recreation department revenue is at 44%. Expenditures are at 35%. The surplus is $25,720. Enterprise fund revenues at 44%. Expenditures are at 38%, and the surplus is $168,852. And the lodger's tax, you got revenues at 153% and expenditures at 4%, surplus at $124,818. Also included in your packet was a couple of pages where we got our Moody's investment. We got an A2 rating by Moody's. Stand for questions.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilor Montoya, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Back in 2003, the city of Las Vegas had passed a 1/8 of 1% tax for the second phase of the recreation center. Where is that up to date? Is that already coming up soon? Is that going to be paid off this year, next year, or when is that going to be paid off? I've been asking about that, and I haven't gotten no response yet.
We did the research, and that bond is not getting paid till 2025.
2025. Okay. And the other question, thank you, Mr. Baqueras. The other question is, for our next council meeting, can we get a report as to our bonding capacity in general for the city of Las Vegas? That's all, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
I'm back to
Okay,
Mr. Romero.
Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could add
Mr. Romero.
to Councilor Montoya's question, I think Dr. Taylor and Jesus is maybe an evaluation on all our taxes we have. I know we have a, 0.25% for water. Can we get some type of report on where we're at? And I don't know, there might be some other, 0.25% or 1/8% taxes that we've had, see where we're at with all those within our tax structure.
Yes, we can do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
the reason for that is just to see, you know, where we're at. Can we renew? Just finding other revenue resources to where, you know, if they're close or some of them have expired, let's redirect them to things that are necessary. So that's the reasoning for that. Thank you.
I also have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
Jesus, can you talk a little bit about that rating? Because residents aren't seeing, and it may be online for them to review, but can you talk a little bit about the rating? You say we're at an A2. Is that comparable to other communities our size? Is that low, medium, or high? Expand a little bit, please, on that rating.
It's a medium rating. The highest is a AAA. There's actually 3 companies that rate municipalities: Standards & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. This is the Moody's rating, and it is off of our debt service and our pension is what's bringing us down from a AAA.
And just to point on the pension, you know, we have to report on that, but the pension system is a state system. We don't really have much influence over where we are with the pension.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did
Can you also elaborate a little bit on the tax base?
What would you like to know, Councilor Rodriguez?
Is it a weak tax base? Are we comparable? Again, I always want to compare our community to other communities of our size in that regard.
So, Councilor, I think that our tax base is essentially defined by the state, and so you know, we're allowed to collect property tax and various gross receipts tax. There has been a change that was enacted by DFA and Tax and Rev that essentially de-earmarked all of the gross receipts taxes. Some of them were for specific purposes. The only things that remain earmarked are things for which the voters approved. So if we put something out to the public and they approve it, then you have to spend the money for that purpose. But all the others have basically been combined, and that gives us a little bit more flexibility on how we can use the money. Now, the tax base, you know, I think, you know, it's not what our tax rates are, you know, the property tax rates and the tax rates that we have for gross receipts, but it depends on how the economy is doing. So if we have a healthy economy and people are spending money, then that's good. But if we have a declining population and high unemployment, then we would see a reduction in people spending and therefore in the tax revenues that we're able to collect. Same thing with the property tax. If we have new houses being built, if we have people improving houses, we're going to get more property tax revenues. But essentially, it's kind of been flat for a long time. And but we held up and saw Jesus's report. We are at 56% of what we budgeted for revenues. That in large part reflects the fact that we were very cautious in how much we budgeted for gross receipts taxes. So when we budgeted, we said the guidance we were getting from the state was that state of New Mexico is reducing the amount that it expected from gross receipts taxes by 15%. We did about the same. If you actually look at the numbers, we're basically right at where we were last year. We're I think a little bit less than 1% below where we were last year. In large part, that reflects the money that people were able to get from the $1,200 checks in the past and the enhanced unemployment benefits. They went out and spent that money. So we didn't see a big reduction like we thought we might. But you know, in the long run, how much we can collect is going to depend on the state of the economy. So we got to have, we have to see an increase in jobs and employment, and income. So when people, the income comes in, people spend it. It's kind of a first principle. Consumption is a function of how much people have. How much they spend is how much, it depends on how much money they have. So, but overall, for right now, we're in pretty good shape. And that's why we'll be able to bring something to you next week or at the next meeting where we propose some changes and in additions to spending, because you also saw in that report, I think, that even though the revenues were right on, in fact, well above what we estimated, expenditures are below that because we haven't been able to fill some positions and we haven't been able to do some of the things that we budgeted. But we're going to work on doing that because in the end, a good public finance is like we collect money from the taxpayer. We need to provide the services to the taxpayer and not just keep it in the savings account.
For a second, I'd just like to recognize Dr. Taylor for his guidance with this budget. And I know that they worked very, very hard, and we had some very tough constraints to look at and very, very grim projections for the gross receipts tax. And to see that our finances are in this good a shape is really, it's very exciting. But I also know that it takes a lot of hard work, and we know that Dr. Taylor has done a great job, and Jesus and Mary that was here prior. So thank you, and Dominic, for coming up with those projections and helping us be where we are today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vaquera, go ahead. Are you done?
I'm done, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business, Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, next order of business items. We have business item number 1, request approval for out-of-state travel to Corpus Christi, Texas for one street crimes investigator from the police department. We have our police chief, Adrian Crispin.
Welcome, Mr. Crispin. I think you're on mute, Adrian.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager.
Welcome, Mr. Crispin.
So we have Antonio Salazar, one of our street crimes unit officers, investigators. He wants to attend the Gracie Survival Tactics in Corpus Christi on February 1st through the 5th, 2021. I kind of inherited this. It was approved last year through council, I believe it was. And it just due to COVID and the pandemic, we were, it got pushed back. So Investigator Salazar is taking all the precautionary measures to meet the criteria to be able to travel. He's doing everything for himself to be able to travel to Corpus Christi. The cost was $859, but I believe they gave it to him for free. So we're just trying to pay for his travel and stay, which is, I believe, around $1,500 or $1,600.
Very well.
1768.
1768. And we haven't used much training and travel funding just because of the COVID pandemic at this time.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Yes. Chief, according to this documentation that you gave us, this is the 4th request for him to go. What happened to the other 3?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I wasn't here at that time. We inherited this, but we would like to get this finalized for him. I think it'd be a great asset for our department to have this type of training, to come back and train our officers and our new recruits. So I couldn't tell you from the past, but the present right now is we're requesting for him to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so $1,768 is the total cost. And I went online with this company, and this company, if you register now, they're offering a 2-for-1 price online. So you can actually train 4 officers for the same price that you're sending one over there for. I think that would be a better way of doing this training. The other concern that I have is that, of course, once this person leaves, we need to have others trained. And if we have 4 people trained, I mean, that's better off for the city. And then the other concern that I have is that I don't believe that now is the time really to be traveling out of state due to this pandemic. And then, of course, once he comes back from out of state, he has to be in quarantine for 14 more days. So we lose out again on that. So I would recommend that that you check into this company and sign up for 4 employees versus 1, and have four people being trained.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Any other comments? What's the
Mr.
pleasure? Yes,
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
And I think if I read this correctly, I don't know, Councilor Montoya, you mentioned the 2 for 1, but the cost of the training is completely free. If I'm right on this, Chief.
Yes.
So the only thing we're paying is travel. So we're not paying anything at all for this individual.
The only thing we're paying for is the travel. The training was free. If we have to send 4 other officers to this training, it would cost us double what we're quadruple what we're paying. So we'd have to pay the amount for the training and then the travel. So as we were saying, Officer Salazar could go to the training, come back and train our officers. There's other training, free training that he'll be getting throughout the year virtually, but this part of training needs to be done in person.
They have it online, Chief. Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, Chief, they have it posted online that you can take it online. And actually, the renewal can be done 2 years down the road, also online. So we would be training 4 officers online rather than sending 1 and spending $1,800. That's the way I read this.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Olivari?
Chief, can you do that? Did you check on that?
Well, I think this is the type of training that he's going to is in person because of the fact that he has to be able to, it's going to be man-to-man training as far as in-person training and doing techniques, and to do training online for techniques, I don't think it's going to work for them. I know after he comes back from that training, he'll be able to get on virtually and be trained for other things that they're doing. So I don't know. We could check into it, but we're kind of delaying this. It would be the 5th time that he's denied from what you're telling me, but I could check into it more further for him. He's the one that's checking into it. We've gotten the go-ahead from Gracie is they're going to have this training in Texas, I believe. So, he has already taken the precautionary measures that have to be done so he can travel. And, like I said, it's benefiting our whole department.
Thank you. I support, for whatever it matters, but I do support in-person training for this type of training. There are a lot of online courses and digital training that you just can't get when you're doing this in person. And so for whatever that's worth, of course, there are precautionary measures he'll have to take and quarantine and everything when he gets back. All that has been considered, I'm sure. Mr. Romero, did you have a comment?
No. Mayor.
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion to approve out-of-state travel for one street crimes investigator for the police department.
Second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
You're muted. Oh, I'm sorry. There, we hear you.
Counselor Montoya, Counselor Montoya,
No.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business, please.
Item number 2 is request approval of resolution 20-74 budget adjustment for the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. We have Mr. Jesus Paqueta, our finance director.
Mr. Vaquera, thank you. Welcome.
Mayor, we are requesting a budget adjustment for our airport. $190,121 for the crack seal and a $20,000 grant that we got for CARES for the airport. And then we got insurance reimbursement for public works for $24,566. And that's for the street light on 7th and Mills.
What's the pleasure of the council? Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero?
So this 190,000, where's that coming from?
That's the rehab airport projects.
The funding is coming from the federal?
Yes, sir. From AIP.
Okay, well, is that like a grant, a separate grant? We're not, you know, I just want to make it clear that we're not, you know, our own.
No, it's a grant.
Fund right to cover that. Okay.
It's a grant.
Councilor Romero, that grant is a fully funded grant. We get fully reimbursed, so it's like free money that the whole crack seal and paint markings are done pretty much for free, and that goes with the CARES Act for the 20,000 as well. Will we
Okay, that's
fully?
Okay, I just wanted, I knew that's what it was. I just wanted to make sure for the record. So is the federal government, are they the ones monitoring this, the contract for the crack sealing, or are we doing that? Are we handling that?
We're doing that.
Okay. And when do you plan this to happen, this work?
That project's already complete. We're just waiting to encumber the funds. Once we get it approved, we go ahead and pay it out and we get it reimbursed.
So the work has been done already? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Ulibarri?
to approve resolution 20-74 budget adjustment request.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Ulibarri. A second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Olivari Jr., a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business.
Next item is business item 3, request approval of resolution 20-73 to update signature authority on accounts with Community First Bank and Southwest Capital Bank. We have Jesus Paqueta, our finance director.
Mr. Vaquera, thank you.
Mayor, when I started, I had a 6-month probation period, and my deputy finance director didn't want to put me as a signature on the banking accounts till I passed my probation.
Your probation.
I'm done with my probation, He's going to put me on the signature list at the bank.
Hey, congratulations. You get the key to the city, Jesus.
Yes.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya.
I move that we approve this resolution request of 20-73.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Councilor Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Romero, Counselor Romero.
Yes. Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor.
Next item on the agenda.
Sorry.
Mr. Romero? Mr.
Just
Romero?
for clarification on the previous item, I'm sorry, I'm going back. I just want to clarify that are we within our legal bounds to where the project was done and now we're doing a budget transfer? I don't know if that's a legal question that we need to look into. I just want to make sure for the record that, we're okay on that. I don't know if.
Mr. Gurule? I think he's talking about the airport.
Yeah.
Yes,
project.
it's already got approved by council back in about 2 or 3 months ago. So the project, it had already moved forward. It's just that the funds hadn't been placed in its proper place.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, Cassandra?
Business item 4, request to publish ordinance number 21-01, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas by amending the docket fees collected by the municipal court in section 20-13A. And we have Councilor Romero presenting on this.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Romero. Go ahead.
Thank you, Cassandra, Mayor and Council. Before tonight, I bring before you ordinance number 21-01. And I bring this before you is, I know we've all had the discussion and, we've had concerns on generate other revenue sources for public safety. And I think this is, based off of our current docket / court costs, what the community, what we charge in our community versus communities our size, it's pretty low. And within the ordinance, I want to thank Scott for helping draft this ordinance. But it's pretty clear. Basically, what we're doing is our current docket fee is $20. We're increasing that to $40, which specifically in section 2 of the ordinance, $15 would specifically go for public safety purposes, and $5 shall specifically go to the city's funds marked for municipal court. And that's so. I know it's a small amount for the municipal, but within our plans, a municipal court building is in the future. It puts us, if there's any match money or anything, it's a start, within that at least, we're making some type of effort towards address with that. I don't know if Scott has any, or anybody has any. Scott's the one that helped me maybe this. So he would know more of how the came about.
Mr. Romero, just for the record, you're breaking up and you're having a little bit of a feed problem. So you're sort of breaking up during your speech, but we got your whole message.
Okay, thank you.
But is there anybody else that would like to comment on this? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, maybe this is for Scott. I don't know who reviewed this ordinance. Is Scott online? Scott?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. On the second page, on the second paragraph, on section 1, it indicates it's amended to change the docket fee. It should be, shouldn't it be to increase the docket fee?
What section are you looking at?
Section 1. the first sentence?
Yeah, we're changing the existing $20 docket fee and we're amending it to be $40.
So you shouldn't be increasing it. Okay. And then on the second paragraph, 20-13, after for the $40, it says as and for a docking fee, which don't make no sense. And then on the fourth sentence, it includes a campus security officer. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean like United World College campus security officer? Does that mean the Highlands campus security officer, or who? What officer?
I think that's a general
get to
term
pay this.
referring to any campus security officers.
Any campus. Okay. I don't know. I think it was a little bit poorly written. And then the other thing is, do I get to keep the other $20?
No,
Because
the way this was actually
This is in section 2. It says for each $40 docket fee, $15 shall be specifically go to the city fund used for police safety purposes, and $5 shall be specially go to the city fund marked for the municipal courts. So where do the other $20 go?
Yeah,
It
Counselor.
doesn't indicate it.
Here's generally the explanation to those questions. This is a carbon copy of the existing ordinance. The only thing that changed were the dollar amounts. But to answer your questions, I think a campus security officer would include Luna, although it's not in the city. But potentially high schools, middle schools, any place that we have a security officer that's acting on a campus, I think that would generally cover that, including Highlands. And then to answer your other questions, the docket fee that currently exists is $20. That $20 is already earmarked. And so what we attempted to do here, and I believe what the intent of Mr. Romero was, is to take that additional $20 and to earmark the additional $20 that we're making provision for by raising the fee. So in other words, we're not, at this point, his intention, and he can speak to it if I'm incorrect, but my assumption is here that the original $20 is already being appropriated in a certain way, and we didn't want to get into micromanaging the current $20 that's accepted, but the additional $20, we wanted to earmark that in some specific ways, specifically to go for public safety, and then have $5 of it be earmarked for the municipal court, because as you probably know, that building needs some help, and their infrastructure over there can always use more funds. So I anticipate that's what the purpose was, but I'll let Mr. Romero speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Scott. And that's exactly the intent here. If you go to where it says the ordinance to amend, the original ordinance is 20-13A, and that's pretty much where all this language came from. So we're just basically in the amendment of the $20 to the $40. And the other cause could have been is change the whole ordinance completely, but it didn't make no sense to change the whole ordinance. Just make these small amendments to that, and that's the reason for that, Councilor Montoya.
Yeah, my only concern is where's the $20 going now?
General.
It goes to the general fund. So.
Oh, okay. Because it doesn't indicate there, no. If it goes to the general fund or goes to the public safety or to the municipal courts.
And I
think that needs to be clarified.
That language is set forth in the previous ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with Councilor Montoya. I think you have to be clearer on section 2 and basically state that $20 will go to the general fund, 15 shall be specifically go to the city fund, and then 5 should be specific. Because that's confusing, because anybody would look at it and say, well, where's that other $20? You may have to include that in that section 2, so it's clear.
On section 2.
Correct.
So Scott, would we just basically add the language to reference the previous ordinance on that, or?
Because if you leave it up to me, I'll put the $20 into the fire department fund.
You may just have to state for each $40 DACA fee, $20 shall specifically go to the general fund, $15 shall specifically go to the city funds used for public safety, and $5 shall specifically go to the city funds marked for the municipal court.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, so just this is actually from a budgeting perspective very simple, because it's all this money is basically going into the general fund. Some of it is being earmarked for the police department, and some of it's being earmarked for the courts. But these are all general fund agencies, and so it's all one big pot of money. But you're saying that this additional money that is going into the general fund is going to be spent on the courts and the police.
Yes, and that was the intent. Is I know like now the JIT goes into the general fund and basically can use it anywhere. I just want to make sure that this extra fees that we're collecting, if approved and passed, is that it does specifically go to that, and there's no future changes to that, and that's the intent for that.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. And may I ask advice from Scott that if we move forward with the approval tonight, that those changes will be made to that ordinance?
Yeah, the council can certainly move forward with the changes that were outlined by Councilwoman Rodriguez, by Councilman Romero, Councilman Romero didn't make any changes, but Councilman Montoya. I know that the one other little nit that was in this thing that I think would be worth clarifying now was that the actual ordinance shall read, the first sentence of that ordinance says, the municipal court shall collect $40 as and for a docket fee from, and I propose that what we put in here is from any person or entity filing a complaint. That kind of clears up the language. It lets everyone know it applies to individuals who are persons. It also applies to any entity if a business was to file a complaint. I think that would clear that up. I know there was some that had been raised at one point by someone saying, perhaps clear up that language. So I'm happy to make those changes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I'll go ahead and move, Mr. Mayor, that we approve ordinance number 21-01 with the following changes to section 20-13, and also to include on section 2, $20 to the general fund.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Montoya. Second, please.
I will second that.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
And Mr. Councilman
Thank you,
Romero, thank you very much for carrying this over. You did a lot of work, and thank you so much for that.
Scott did most of the work. I just did the directing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Romero. And thank you, Scott.
Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, next item on the agenda is item 5, request to publish ordinance 20-18, amending ordinance 17-11 to modify the loan agreement with the New Mexico Environment Department for the wastewater treatment plant lift stations. And we have our Utilities Director, Maria Gilvery.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors.
Good evening. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For clean water SRF loans and grants, NMFA requires that we publish an ordinance. We did submit and had an ordinance published for originally 17-11. Once the project was completed and we put it out to bid, we had improved the project a little bit by adding in some generators, which increased the cost of the project. Once it was increased, we went back to NMFA, and they were in agreement with increasing our grant funds and increasing the loan if the city so wished. And so if we do this, we would need to publish a new ordinance amending the old ordinance. This would increase the principal from $350,000 to $850,000, 0% interest, and I believe it's for 20 years. The grant funds would increase from $100,000 to $150,000, and this would cover the cost of the project. So this is a 0% interest. Basically, the value of the money will be a lot less, or I guess maybe a lot more. I don't know how to look at it in 20 years if we're getting to borrow $850,000 for 0% interest. But we would need to publish a new ordinance, and that's what this is. This ordinance addresses the original ordinance and then the amendment to the new loan and grant dollar amounts.
Thank you, Maria. Comments? Discussion? What's the pleasure of the council?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Maria, if I ask, on this treatment plant lift station, is that outdated, or what was the reasoning for that?
Sorry, Counselor, could you repeat that question one more time? You kind of cut out.
On replacing this lift stations at the water treatment plant, what is it outdated, or what's the deal with that?
Yes, Counselor, these are the 3 lift stations that the City Council awarded to be refurbished. I believe it was last month. They are extremely outdated. The pumps are failing. It does not have any generator backup. So when we lose power, we lose the ability to pump from certain areas to the wastewater plant. So these are extremely old and need to be refurbished.
I thought those ones were for the industrial park.
Yes, Counselor, they are the 3 lift stations at DBIB, the detention center area, and DOT. And this funding will cover the entire cost of the project at 0% interest. Plus, again, part of it is a grant.
Okay. Now, Maria, on that, did we get an adjustment from the contractor for the transferring of equipment, for the relocating?
So on that, I did talk to them about the mobilization. Because they were a local company, their mobilization had nothing to do, very little to do with equipment. That was the bonding that was required. So there are 3 separate projects, so there were 3 separate bonds. So that section could not be adjusted. If they are going to try and see if they can adjust it a little bit, but that'll only address the handful of equipment that doesn't go very far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Any other questions, discussions? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I don't know, was there a question? Or
No.
Okay, with that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to publish ordinance 20-18, amending ordinance 17-11.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
I will second it.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Counselor
Yes.
Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business, please. Thank you, Maria.
Item number 6 is to reject request for proposals number 2021-08 for the Public Works concrete flat work. We also have Utilities Director Maria Gilby.
Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. The Project Management Office, along with Public Works, submitted an RFP for some concrete flat work and to have a contractor on call for any concrete work that we needed to get taken care of that couldn't be done within city staffing. We did receive 2 proposals. Both of them were outside the city, and both of them had high costs plus high mobilization costs. This did not meet the needs of the city, and per our RFP, the city can reject an RFP if it does not meet the needs of the city. So I'm requesting that we reject and resubmit RFPs to meet the needs of the city.
And what project was that for, Maria?
Mr. Mayor, it wouldn't be for a specific project. It would be to have them on call in case Public Works had some concrete work that needed to be done, and we weren't able to do it within staffing, but there was a critical need to get it done quicker. Then we wanted as a backup to be able to use a contractor. It would not be-
Understood. Discussion? Questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
So Maria, on this contract, no one from here bid on it. No contractors from here locally.
That is correct.
And what's the reasoning for that?
I couldn't tell you. We did publish it in the Optic, the Journal, and on the city's website. We did let several contractors know. It's possible that it was just bad timing. So I would like to consider republishing it because I think it was bad timing as we have several local contractors who are capable of doing this work.
So if this coming year, Mayor and Council decide to do $500,000 of sidewalk projects, this contract would cover that?
It could, but most likely if it was a large amount like that, we would probably take it back out to bid to make sure that the entire project came in at a cost-effective amount.
Okay.
Sometimes these smaller ones don't necessarily, they're really good for small projects, but not necessarily for big projects.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if there's no objection or if there's no discussion, I'll go ahead and approve this reject request for proposal 2021-08 and put it out for rebid. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
There's a motion by Mr. Montoya.
Mr. Mayor,
Second.
I
Second by
that.
Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Question.
Ms. Romero, Ms. Rodriguez.
Yeah, so Maria, you're thinking that locals are not bidding on this because it's not cost effective for them because it's low cost projects?
No, Counselor. I believe that it might have just been the time of year. It was during holidays when we were going through a lot of this stuff. We might have missed some bidders. I do know that the ones that did propose do not meet the needs of the city. So they're kind of two separate things. One is this does not meet the needs of the city. It would be too costly to go down this with these two vendors. And if we were to do this again, we are aware that there are many local vendors that would meet the needs.
Thank you. I appreciate your diligence and assessing that.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Mayor.
much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Maria, I would encourage you that next time you put out this for bid, that you send out a letter if it's okay with legal, notifying these vendors in town that there is this contract to be awarded. Just a little extra step. The same thing we did with the COVID monies. You know, a lot of businesses didn't know about it, or a lot of businesses just ignored it. And it wasn't until the city went out there door to door and letting them know that there was monies available for them. I mean, that we were able to give all that money. But the same thing with these vendors. I know there's concrete vendors here in town that can bid on these projects, on this bid, award bid. No, so
I would ask for legal to chime in on that process.
Well, I can tell you from procurement.
The one comment I would make before Maria answers is that I think what we need to do is go through procurement and double check this with procurement, see what the procurement obligations are. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I think Maria usually takes steps in that direction, so I'll let her answer.
So, Mayor and Council, we have received guidance from purchasing in the past that if we do submit to individual contractors or vendors, we need to do multiple, at least 3 has been our target. That way we're not targeting only one vendor, which can appear to be inappropriate. So we go to multiple vendors. So if we do that, Councilor Montoya, we would need to reach out. The rule of thumb we've been using is at least 3. Give at least 3 vendors the same information.
Thank you, Maria.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
If I could add to that is, Maria, if the only way to, I mean, usually they recommend that in procurement to not do that, because if you do call 3 and you don't call 1, that fourth person might have. So if they do, I mean, one thing to look at is to look within community development and get all, businesses that are contractors or do cement work, to where you're every single one that's licensed. But to me, I think, I think you put word out and you advertise enough. And I know that there's a few that were, I guess the timing, like you said, they didn't put in. So I know that there's already a few that, are going to be happy that it's, being rebid. I just say be careful, you not even do the 3, because just my understanding through procurement is if you miss that fourth one does have a claim to file against you.
Yes.
Just a heads up. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, I have a first and a second, if I may call roll call.
Absolutely.
Councilor Ulivari Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Montoya, a second by Councilor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business. Thank you, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor, we have business item 7, request to purchase 2 side load packer trucks for solid waste division. And again, we have Utilities Director Maria Gilvery.
Mayor and councilors, and Lucas is also on the session here if there's any questions that need to be directed to him.
Thank you.
We do have a request to purchase 2 more side load packer trucks, which are the residential ones. As the council is well aware, we have an aging fleet, and we're constantly dealing with maintenance issues. And so having 2 more trucks will continue to help keep our fleet young and healthy. And this is also part of our replacement plan. We're getting to the point where we can replace 1 every year. I believe we might be to that after this one, after we purchase these 2, then possibly next fiscal year, we may be able to start with just replacing 1 every year.
Thank you, Maria. Discussion, please. What's the pleasure of the council?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
I know I'm a little concerned with this, Maria, in regards to purchasing and putting a lot of money into these trucks. If we're looking at contracting this with a third company. So I asked this question last time we were at our meeting, and I know Bill Taylor said that they were looking at contracts, but it was going to take a while. So how do we reconcile spending this amount of money if we're going to be contracting with a third party in this area?
Dr. Taylor, would you like to take a stab at that?
Well, I'll let Maria go first, but I think that when those kind of things happen, they purchase all the assets, and so they had to purchase those assets at some market value.
In addition, Councilor, I kind of have to do 2 things at one time. One is focus on our current need to meet the city's requirements and taking care of our customers. At the same point, looking at alternatives for the future. If we get too far behind on keeping our fleet up, and we do end up continuing the service, then it'll be a larger cost later, along with more upset customers. So I'm doing 2 things. One is we need to keep the fleet current and operational. At the same point, look at any alternatives.
And let me just say one more thing about that, Councilor, is that I think the mayor's made the point several times that we get so many complaints about trash pickup, and a lot of times the problem we've had is that these vehicles are old and they go down easily, and when they go down, we fall behind schedule. So I think that this is we need to do 2 things to make sure that we have an effective organization. One is that they have the equipment they need, that we have the personnel. We're working on that as well to get the personnel in place to operate these vehicles.
And so I'd like to also add, just to keep the story straight here, Dr. Rodriguez, we did talk about privatization or maybe even contracting. There is no active discussion at this point. So we are not pursuing a third party at this point. The conversations have been held loosely. that doesn't mean that eventually we might want to consider looking at that. But for right now, there's no active discussion about a third party.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
So just for clarification, as far as staffing, are we going to continue to maintain, if we do purchase these, the other trucks en route also, or what's the plan?
Lucas, do you want to talk to how you're going to rotate your Packer trucks, please?
You have to unmute.
There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Lucas. Welcome to the meeting, and I appreciate you guys staying up with us, Lucas. And I see Mr. Hiron in the background.
Got Alvin back there with me. Good
Welcome.
evening, councilors. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us here. We appreciate you guys. So what we're trying to do here is, of course, we're coming into fully staffed mode right now. We're actually adding 2 more Packer drivers at the first of the month. They're going to be able to come in here and be trained, not just in Packer trucks, but also in transport trucks, because they do have Class A CDLs. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that all these trucks are manned. Right now, we have 2 guys that go out on a consistent basis, Monday through Friday, to try to keep up with these routes. And, adding the 3rd guy in would be a big plus. Even the 4th guy would be even more of a plus, because now we could cut down this route from just 2 routes to 4 routes and make sure that these routes are getting picked up more consistently, and and try to make sure that we're meeting the health and standards of the city of Las Vegas.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you, Lucas.
I also have another question, please. Thank you, Lucas. With the purchases of these trucks, how does that affect the maintenance, the warranty? Does someone come in and warrant these vehicles, and do we bring outsiders into maintenance, or do we have insiders, people who are able to do that?
So Mayor, Council, right now we have nobody that's at the Solid Waste Department. I'm sure we're going to discuss this a little bit later on, but there's nobody that's certified to do maintenance on these vehicles within the department. If we do go ahead and maintenance any part of this vehicle and something does happen, we could cost ourselves that warranty. So we do go with an outside contracted diesel mechanic who is certified and can do the repairs or maintenance or mechanical issues on these trucks.
And I guess the next proposal that's looking at repair services. So thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Lucas, these are under warranty. Is it for a year? These new trucks?
I'm sorry, Maria, you kind of broke up there.
I believe it's a 1-year warranty. Is it a 1-year warranty for the new trucks?
1 year to 2 years. So we have 1 year guaranteed and an option to buy an additional year.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a financial question. So Maria or Lucas, so is this money already appropriated in your budget?
Counselor, we do believe we have a portion of it in our budget, so we're going to be getting with finance to do a transfer. We may have to do a bar, but we do have the funds either within our cash reserves or within our current budget.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a question. Maria, was this also part of the capital outlay? Didn't we request some of this money through capital outlay? So we may get reimbursed if we get a capital outlay, correct?
Councilor Rodriguez, we did request some additional funding through capital outlay, but capital outlay, we have to purchase the item after the funding has been approved. So it would not, if we do receive any funds, it would be used for next year's, the one we would purchase in July, not this one.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya.
I move with the request to purchase 2 side truck loaders for our solid waste division.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Montoya. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. And gentlemen, thank you for all the hard work you do. I know it's one of those jobs that isn't appreciated every day, but I appreciate everything that you do. And you're very responsive to the community. And every time people call you, you answer phones and you're out there. I can't remember any time anybody's called and they haven't been serviced. So once again, thank you so much to you, Mr. Marquez, to Mr. Giron, and to all your crew.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
I really appreciate you.
I also second that because every resident who calls complaining about that, when I put in a request to Maria or Lucas, it's taken care of immediately. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cassandra, next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, business item 8, award request for proposals number 2021-09 for diesel repair services for the City of Las Vegas diesel fleet to DAG Enterprises of New Mexico LLC and enter into contract. We have Maria Gilvery, our Utilities Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to talk a little bit about the RFP process related to this, and then Lucas is here to talk about the technical requirements, the maintenance requirements that solid waste needs from a contract like this. So the city did submit an RFP for diesel repair services. We did advertise in the Optic, the Albuquerque Journal, and the city's website. We did only have one respondent. This has come up in the past that we've only had one respondent. The city does try and, to what Councilor Romero said before, we do try and be careful about who we inform outside of the normal advertising of a particular RFP or an RFB. But because in the past we had a hard time getting more than one respondent, we did reach out again in the past to every diesel mechanic we could find, and none of them other than DAG chose to propose. So
Thank you very
in that
much.
case, and what we're looking for is local. We need somebody local. We can't have somebody from Santa Fe or Albuquerque wasting 2, 3, 4 hours of our day just in transport when these vehicles need to be fixed quickly. So Lucas needs to talk a little bit about the service requirements of this contract.
Sure. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Mark.
Mayor, Council. So definitely our plea is we're trying to look at it at a different angle, and I really appreciate the councilman and city manager pointing out a couple of things to us, a few things, and we're glad to look at it from a different perspective. Definitely what we're looking at is the requirements of our mechanic, that they're able to secure our vehicles within their facilities when they're working on them, because we got to make sure that these vehicles are being properly diagnosed by computers with the proper lighting, keeping them from freezing temperatures and the chances that we might have to leave them there overnight. The mechanic that we're looking at right now, he has a good history with the city of Las Vegas. He definitely always guarantees his work, his materials. He responds promptly to us every time. I've had Diego out there at 3:30 in the morning starting Packer trucks so that we can get our days started. And not once have I had a complaint from him. He's always out there to make sure that we're the priority on his list. So he does have different contracts with different entities. However, the city of Las Vegas is the #1 priority, and that makes him really good candidate for what we're looking at right here. We have hourly averages of $70 to $90 an hour for diesel mechanics. I believe this proposal came in at $80 an hour, Mr. at DAG. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we keep ourselves in tune with what's going on. So if they do a piece of work and it calls for a certain amount of hours, we want to make sure that we're looking at the same program that Mr. Grego was looking at. So what we went ahead and did is find out which system he was using, which is called the Mitchell 1 system. And we go ahead and cross-reference hours and work and cost analysis on the work that's being conducted on all our vehicles. The past year, and this number is going to be a little bit large, we spent $280,000 on solid waste vehicles. That's on repair and maintenance. Now, this is spread across not just one vehicle or 4 vehicles. This is spread across 27 vehicles in total. diesel, and these are vehicles that are on the roadways, and also vehicles that are used in our facility, like our loader, our track hoe, our bobcats. All these things need to have a maintenance. We have them on a maintenance schedule of every 3 months. So every 3 months, Mr. Grego will call and say, this vehicle is ready to come in for its service. At that point in time, we go ahead and come in and we conduct our services. Some of these vehicles that are on highway and on roadways need to be DOT inspected annually. So every year that might cost us a little bit more. Looking back at our maintenance costs, they're anywhere between $700 and $1,000 for maintenance, just regular routine maintenance. This is talking oils, filters, tranny flushes, diesel, rear end, changing out the fluids out back there. That came out to a total of about $186,000 last year out of the $280,000. So 186 was just for routine maintenance. That doesn't count, of course, the unforeseen breakdowns like differentials, hoses that might tear. And although they're not very expensive to fix hoses, they're repetitive. So they constantly break down. They constantly break. For example, this week on Monday, our holiday day that we came out to work, one of my guys picked up a trash can, and a big rock came out from that trash can. It didn't make it into the hopper. It instead bounced around kind of like a basketball and broke every hose on the way down, including the sensor. Mr. Grego, who was off on that holiday, also got a call from my foreman, Gilbert Jaramillo, and he made his way out to where we were at, took the truck in, and got it ready for us for the next day. So those are things that we look at when it comes down to these types of this type of mechanic that we're looking for. These trucks are worked hard, and they do have plenty of breakdowns. And when we do have those extremely rare breakdowns, they can have parts that cost upwards of $13,000 just for parts alone. That's not including the labor to put everything together and all the stuff that we got going on. We've gone ahead and made changes to our maintenance routine, where we go ahead and have them do constant daily inspections. They're reviewed by our now new foreman, Gilbert Jaramillo, who is signing off on these. We have certain items that we need to still go through the procurement process, such as windshields and batteries, that we need to go ahead and go through the procurement right now, which makes it very difficult for us to keep a truck on the road. If that truck would happen to go down because of a broken windshield, or DOT would pull us over and say, you can't drive this truck because of a broken windshield, that truck would stay parked for at a minimum of a week, putting us behind on our routes, putting the public health and public safety at risk, and also causing the delays, and of course the phone calls to Mr. Taylor, Mayor Trujillo, Councilman Montoya, Councilman Ulibri, and the other two councilors as well. And it's something that we need to look to be proactive about. City staff, we have zero employees that are certified in mechanics. Even though we can do some of the work, we could do a little bit of the work. Changing out a wiper is not gonna violate our warranties. Maybe checking our fluids, of course, is not going to violate our warranties. Change a headlight, that's kind of a nifty area because we are dealing with mechanical, electrical issues there. So there are certain things that we can do. However, right now we can't do them on the dirt. We're not going to do that. We're not going to call underneath trucks in the dirt and put our guys at risk with those vehicles. So we need a proper facility for them to be maintained at, which is, of course, been extended to us from Mr. Grego to go ahead and conduct this kind of maintenance on these vehicles. The city, and talks, and I've talked to Maria, and she's done a lot of thinking with us. We have considered having our own mechanics on staff, but we're going ahead and doing a cost analysis on that, the cost benefit. We're trying to see how much a building would be, how much the tools would be, and how much staff we're actually going to need, because we're going to need to have a lot of computer systems set up to go ahead and diagnose these issues. For example, our new truck that we had just brought in, that was in here for maybe a week. We had a situation where the driver pushed the button and the truck stopped working completely. We couldn't understand what it was. They tried to talk us through on the phone, couldn't get it going. Let's take it to Albuquerque. They had to run the computer through it, and they found a fusible link on the passenger side dashboard that was actually causing this truck to go ahead and shut itself off to protect its computer system altogether. And that's what what we need is we need those types of machines. Diego's put forth a lot of effort into buying this type of equipment to prove himself to the city and to encourage the city to keep him on. And I think the city in turn has gone ahead and done its share by going ahead and changing its maintenance plan to try to keep ourselves up and running. We do have a very ambitious goal next year, and we're going to try to keep it at that, but let's see if we can try to drop this a little bit from where it was at this last year.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir,
What's
Mayor.
a pleasure of the council?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Now, with DAG Enterprise, with this contract, we would get 4 individuals, right, that are on call to repair the vehicles. Is that correct?
Councilor Rodriguez, yes, ma'am. We would have as many as he would supply us. Right now, I believe DAG has 2 mechanics that go out, and of course he has himself that'll come out if need be, and also he has a tech advisor at the office as well.
Okay. Is there, and this might be a little beyond what this is dealing with, is there any way we could do like internships? I mean, it'd be great to see if we could get some of our young youth here trained to be able to do this kind of work. And I know they have a program at Luna. I don't know if it goes to the extent of diesels, but is that a possible option too, so that we can train and have future employment in this area?
I think that's a question that I would extend, Councilwoman, I'm sorry. But I think that's a question I would extend over to Maria in regards to what we could possibly do in training.
Councilwoman Rodriguez, I think that does fall into our desire to look at having an in-house mechanic at the city. So we have been talking about that possibility. Again, it's a conversation right now because it's a lot of costly tools that are required, not just the person or the several employees, but the materials, the equipment, the computers, as Lucas mentioned. So we have to look at the cost benefit of having somebody on staff along with insurance for work like that. But that would be something we would definitely consider if we're going to go that direction.
Well, if you need any assistance, just please let me know, Maria. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
Okay, I guess everybody be prepared. I have a lot of questions on this one. So just kind of my history, going back many, many years on any automotive or diesel contract is I've seen it in the past where the city of Las Vegas was taken advantage of. And not that I have any issues at all with any of the vendors or anything, but that we have to, they have to be, be fair and treat the city just like they would anybody else and not take advantage. I've seen issues in the past where a light bulb they charge $80 for a light bulb because of if you go to the hourly rate, that's what it costs. And that's, that's to me is wrong. But I'll start off, if we go through the RFP page, there's an emergency towing requirement there. And my question on the emergency towing is he calling another vendor and letting the city have it at that cost when towing is needed, or could the city, do their own towing where we would pay the direct cost? I just want to make sure that we're not, paying more than what we should be on towing. Yes.
Councilor Romero, so the city at certain times can do its own towing, and we have done so in the past. There are certain times when we can't do it. For example, we had an international semi that a rod blew through the the motor on the highway. We couldn't tow that one. So yes, he went ahead and he'll go subcontract through that and get that semi back into town so we could go ahead and see what the situation is. The main priority, of course, is safety of the employee. As far as cost, we get what he gets. When he gets charged, we get charged.
And we're verifying that?
We verify that, and we try not to be so nitpicky with the verifying. But we did go as far as to go ahead and get the same type of system that Mr. Grego has, so we could go ahead and cross-reference his hours and what they're charging us as well.
And that's what I want to make sure. I mean, that's the other big part is, I've seen in the past, again, where let's say a job that normally takes an hour, and yes, they bid $40 an hour, and it looks like a great price, but then they bill 4 hours for a job that costs 1 hour, and we don't, in the past it wasn't verified. So in the long run, we paid more than what we really should have had we been able to kind of verify and all I'm asking is not it, where we're in your department or who it is, that we're kind of keeping track on that and we're not being taken for a ride. The other question that I had is on the RFP, it says a job exceeding 3,000 must receive prior approval. I think 3,000, we're pretty much letting them go up to 3,000 and then we make a call. Can we lower that? Is that something we could look into?
Councilor Romero, I think Maria might be able to answer that one a little bit better. I'm fine with lowering it if we have to.
And Councilor Romero, we kind of used 3,000 because that was we weren't finding many issues under 3,000, and it does, but we wanted to definitely make sure that the anything above 3,000 was definitely being verified as necessary, because sometimes maybe the vehicle's at its end of life. Is it really worth, $13,000 like we had to do recently on a vehicle, and it determined it was worth $13,000. But a few $1,000s, it's definitely important for us to track those. But the ones we definitely don't want to be taken advantage of, or the ones we definitely don't want him to have carte blanche on, is the expensive ones that it might not be worth putting into the vehicle. So that's why we chose 3,000, and I think we used DOT as a reference on that. We referenced the.
I'm just asking is that if a cost, let's say it's 1,800. I mean, I would think right off the bat that we would make, kind of verify and run on the software, or $2,000, make sure that we're getting that approval, that it's not, and I've done work through GES, through SANA in state contracts like that, where, I think at that time it was like 500 and you had to call and verify, and they would make sure that you weren't overcharging. So I'm just asking for the same type of, system in place. It's 500,
And on this one, Councilor, Lucas is always in contact with, actually all of the managers are in contact with their mechanics whenever any vehicle is taken in, whether it's $100 or $10,000. Lucas knows what it's going in for, and he also pays attention to the cost.
Okay. So again, just for the record, estimation software is part of the thing that we're going to be on top of.
Councilor Romero, yes, sir. That's one thing that we're going to be cross-referenced. We really, usually when we see a bill of $600, we get all over it to try to see if we can cross-reference things that went on in that thing. We are constantly watching this. We try to do our best.
Okay. And then as far as on the proposal, we have parts. It says parts will be billed at a maximum discount offered by the manufacturer or supplier. There's a wholesale price and there's a retail price. What I've seen in bids that I've done myself is that usually they'll give like a percentage off of, let's say 20%. So this one kind of, because no manufacturer is going to say, okay, here's a 20% off. So I just want a little clarification on the parts discount.
Okay, I could get you that answer, Counselor.
What page is that on, Council?
I believe it's the second page. Second page of the request for proposal, where it says parts.
Yeah, so we put that in there saying that if there is any kind of discounts or anything that the vendor gets, then we need to get that same discount. So we can't have a vendor going in and buying a part that this month has a 10% discount and then he charges us last month's rate. So whatever discount he gets, we must get.
And in an automotive, there is really, it's one set price. There is no, it's either, like I said, if it's retail or wholesale. As a wholesaler, of course you have markup, and I'm just, there is no where there's a percentage month or next week a special. I'm just, just verify that, what our rate is, because kind of to me, the way I read that, it's, there is not going to be no discount, but then again, that's me.
Well, I used to work at O'Reilly's, and I would sell parts to many of the mechanics in town, and they would get there is a discount for mechanic shops.
Yeah. The wholesale.
So whatever that discount that mechanic shops get, they pass that on to the city.
So we're getting wholesale price from him? No markup at all? Is that? If that's the case, then that's really good. I just want to verify.
I don't know.
And my last question.
Sometimes we authorize like a 10% markup because we do know that some of their profit comes in the materials for picking it up from the store.
That's what I'm saying.
I have to refresh my
Yes.
memory on if we authorized a 10% markup.
Okay. And then the last question that I have is, RFP, there's no liability insurance requirement?
No, there is. Yes, there is. There is liability.
What page was that? 'Cause I didn't see that. I don't even see it in his document.
It's in there. Find it for you.
Yeah.
Saw it.
Was it?
Yeah. I did see it. Let me see.
I think it's either 1 million or 2 million for consular.
Okay. I guess I didn't see it here. But,
Let me find it. I was just reading.
oh, yeah. No wonder. It's in the back. I'm sorry. That's my fault. Okay. And the other thing, Lucas, the clarification on after hours and holidays. Let's say a truck breaks down. Let's say, Martin Luther King Day, we were closed. It's an item that, yes, he could do it the next day. How are you determining, to go ahead and, because the contract says we're going time and a half on that. If it's, who has the call to, well, you know what, we don't want to have time, let's say it's a 6-hour job, but we could wait till tomorrow. Who's making that call? He is, or you, or we are?
No, we make that call, Counselor. If we see a truck is broken down on the road, we definitely can't leave that vehicle there. So we take the initiative to go ahead and call on Diego at that point.
Okay, and kind of what I'm saying is that I understand, they'll call it in, he'll say, well, I could do it today, or it'll take me 2 hours tomorrow. Well, is he making a call to go ahead and fix it today at the time and a half versus tomorrow, or? Let's say,
like for example, on Martin Luther King Day, when the truck broke down, we were in the middle of our route. So we needed that truck to be back to us that same day. And if we're down an hour, we're pretty much behind about 4 hours on our route. So when it broke down that day, we called him, he came out, he took it in 2.5 hours, he had it back to us that same day. And we continued with our route. So it depends on the size of the breakdown that's happening. If it would be the cradle arm, then of course, we're going to say this is going to take us an extra day or so. So we would probably get it back to his property, and then when he would work on it, it'd be the day after.
So if it was a regular pickup truck that you could do away with today, on Martin Luther King Day, you could wait till the next day. You'll make that call to where we don't need to pay the time and a half. Is that?
So my understanding, and what I've seen, Diego's never charged us time and a half, not even for holidays. And we can look at our old billing and look at that and find out. I know what it says in the contract, but we have never been charged time and a half by Mr. Grego.
Okay.
And I can say that with confidence.
I also have a comment. This individual and his business is local, correct?
Councilwoman, yes, ma'am. He lives with about 2 miles out of town.
And I know, we often look at previous behavior and we often judge future behavior based on that, but we have to assume that he's an honest individual. We have to assume that you are going to do due diligence in checking the costs, and also the money that they spend in our community. So I understand what you're alluding to, and your questions, Councilman David Romero, but also I have to assume, I don't know this individual, but I have to assume that he's an honest person. He lives in our community and he wants to continue to live in this community. So even word of mouth of dishonesty kind of tarnishes your reputation here. So I appreciate the questions, but I'm also giving this gentleman and his business the benefit of the doubt and say that they're going to do well for our city. They're not going to overcharge us, and they're not going to, and they're going to do an excellent job. I just want to make that comment. Thank you for all your diligence.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
I'll try and make this kind of quick.
Thank you.
So the last report that Mayor and Council received, Lucas, there was only one warranty that came back that we didn't get charged on from DRAG, which concerns me. There ought to be more than that. And then the other thing is, my question is, how come every time I pass through this company's place, business, there's always 3 or 4 trucks parked out there. One of them's without tires. And it has been there, those trucks have been there for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So are those being used for parts, or are they, how come we didn't auction them out if they're not usable, or what's the story on those trucks?
Councilor Montoya, so there's no vehicles over there without tires that I've seen, and I've gone over there quite a few times. I haven't seen any of our vehicles without tires. I know there's a front loader that's over there that's been in there for a warped head, and they're trying to go ahead and locate that part. That's a pen pack vehicle, and that company actually went not bankrupt, but they closed down. So it's hard to find those parts anymore. Locating those parts are extremely difficult. So that's been the issue with that one. But once we find that one should be back up and running, and we may have, it's an older truck. So again, we'd have to sit down and see if it's going to be worth us saving. The only reason I didn't auction it off is because I didn't know how our older new truck was going to react anymore.
Okay.
So that's why we had that one there, sir.
The other question, Maria, is for utilities. Does utilities utilize this contract for their heavy equipment, or do they do their own servicing?
If there's maintenance that can be done by city staff, such as oil changes and battery changes and minor stuff, it's done by staff. If it's something warranty or it's something we don't have the tools for, then it will be taken into a mechanic. If it's our backhoes, our diesel equipment, it would go to DAG. If it's gas, regular fuel, then we would take it to another mechanic in town.
Okay. And then maybe the next question is for our city manager or Mr. Vaqueras or whomever works in purchasing. How can we have a check and balance as to the cost of pricing for parts, the cost of repairs, instead of just letting Lucas basically be the one to just submit the invoice and say that work was done? Can we have a check and balance as to if we're getting like an auditor or like somebody auditing this paperwork that's coming in? Because I know in the last report that we got, we saw a tarp repair for $2,200, which was unacceptable to me. But if we can have somebody double checking this or second balancing system included in there, because you know what, $300,000 or $350,000 a year is a lot of money. And so when you see that, what I see is that we need to get better at PMing our vehicles and maintaining our vehicles. And then the last question that I have is for the city attorney. This contract reads that the terms of this contract will be for 1 year, not to exceed 3 years, and it will be renewed every year. But at the last sentence, it says this agreement shall not exceed 4 years. What year are we on this contract? Or is this the 4th year? Or is this the 8th year? Or what year is it on this contract?
Counselor, I can answer that. This would be the first year of the contract, and per our procurement with every single contract with the city of Las Vegas, they all must be renewed annually, and the maximum that they can be renewed is 3 times for a total of 4 years. That is the same for every contract with the city of Las Vegas.
Okay, so are we on the 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 4th term?
The council approves this would be the first year.
No, but what term? Is this the 3rd time the 4-year term? Or the 2nd or the 1st?
This is Counselor, this would be the first year of a 4-year term.
So he's only been with us for 4 years, period.
No, Counselor, Diego's been with us for over 15 years.
15 years, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Is legally, this contract reads that this agreement shall not exceed for 4 years. So once 4 years come about, according to this contract, you can't renew this contract.
This is a brand new agreement, Counselor. The last 4 years was under a previous contract. So this is a brand new agreement. This is totally different than the last one.
Yeah, but you just mentioned that you can only renew it three different times. That's 12 years.
No, sorry, Counselor. I'm sorry for not explaining it clearly. So yes, first off, Diego, DAG has been with us for a while. Every 4 years, we put out a new RFB or an RFP. So the last RFP was done 4 years ago. We had the original contract. We renewed it 3 times after it. Now we cannot renew that contract again, so we had to go out RFP again.
And I understand what you're saying, Maria.
Okay.
But this agreement, if you read it on there, on the terms of the agreement, it says the agreement shall not exceed 4 years. Period. And that's a legal question for you, Mr. Scott.
Well, I think there's 2 things here. First off, I think what that's saying is when you do an initial contract with somebody, you can't just renew it with an addendum past 4 years. Now, my understanding, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong here, this is not the same entity that we've done with previously. As far as I'm aware, this particular individual recently incorporated into a new entity, partially for his own, to get his own business affairs together. So I'm not even sure that this is the same entity as we've contracted with previously. I think it's the same guy doing the work, but he has he incorporated or he organized as an LLC or something in the last couple of years, and so I think technically we're safe. But on a larger point to your concern, we can have a contract and we can renew it 4 times, and then after that we have to do a new contract. It can still be with the same person. We just can't take a contract and just keep renewing it endlessly. And I believe that falls under some procurement issues as well. But it's just not a good practice to have a contract that goes out 10, 15, 20 years because laws change, lots of things change. So it's not to say that DAG couldn't get multiple contracts. They could be in 4-year cycles, or they might not be in 4-year cycles. We might hire them with a brand new contract, and at the end of this year say, you know what, we don't want to just renew the contract, we want to rewrite it. So there's a lot of different options here, but I think what you're going to is it doesn't say that we can't continue to contract with him past the 4-year period. We can sign a new contract with him. There's nothing prohibiting us from doing that. We just can't extend that particular contract past 4 years, but we can do a new one.
Yeah, but Maria says, and I think that she's correct on saying that the city of Las Vegas cannot renew a contract more than 4 times every 4 years, or 3 times, so for a period of 12 years.
No.
No?
No.
No.
No, that's. I think you're interpreting it wrong.
Okay.
I think. Go ahead, Maria, but you explained it clear earlier.
Yeah, the one contract cannot exceed 4 years, and so it's not a 4-year contract. It's a 1-year contract with the 2nd year addendum, the 3rd year addendum, the 4th year addendum, and then we cannot give it a 5th year addendum. We have to stop at that point, put it back out for everybody to propose or bid on, give everybody a chance at it again, update the agreement. In this case, we added some more requirements into the agreement. So this is a different agreement than the last one. We learn each time additional things we need to add in for clarification so that we can continue to hold our vendors accountable. So if you look at this agreement and the last agreement, they would be distinctly different. And so this would be a brand new agreement where we would be starting at year 1 for this one with a maximum of 4 years.
Well, okay. And just to end my comment, Mr. Mayor, I think that we need to move forwards with all our vehicles in the city of Las Vegas to do an in-house maintenance program for smaller vehicles and smaller trucks. Sure, the heavy equipment and the bigger packer trucks and all that, yeah, we're not equipped and we don't have the technology and stuff like that. But if we can do some cost analysis and save some money doing our own servicing like we did 34 years ago, I mean, I think we could save the city some money, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to you, Mr. Romero, because you had another comment. But I do want to say, Dr. Taylor, so any of these contracts, are they randomly audited? Like does the finance department audit like every 10th bill or invoice that comes in to make sure that we are following procurement and proper billing?
Yeah, I'd like Mr. Baqueta to do that. We just went through an audit. We'll be getting the results of that publicly soon. But when that audit happens, they not only they audit our contracts, and so they. I know that we've had findings in the past that there were contracts that were problematic for some reason. So. I think that the whole process is kind of randomized so that they're not looking at every contract every year, but they do choose certain things to audit, and they do that on a random basis so that nobody knows which one's going to be audited. And Jesus, do you want to add anything to that, or did I get it wrong?
No, sir. Our auditors do pick vendors random. And I think it should be based on amount, but it's not. It's just random by vendors. They just pick them and they audit those.
So I guess my question is, why don't we do a little bit of that in-house? So like it doesn't have to be every bill, but and I know that maybe we're expecting Lucas to do it on. For his department, but, for state procurement, and also I think it's important that we do a contract evaluation every year. So and that we don't move forward and ask for another contract with another contractor or with the same contractor until that contract has been evaluated. Have they been, responsive? Do they provide the service? We can come up with a contract evaluation tool for each contract we have out there. And that way, when it comes down to not selecting a company again, good, bad, or indifferent, we have the documentation that says, I'm sorry, but they did poorly on their contract evaluation. We're not using this company again. So with that, I'll turn over the floor to Mr. Romero.
Okay. My last question would be on the terms of the contract. I don't see any language here, but I just wanted to clarify and make sure that's not that if this item isn't brought before council, it doesn't have an automatic rollover. Am I correct? There's no automatic. So every year it should be brought before us because right now in the language, it only says by a mutual agreement of all parties. So I don't know who that mutual agreement is. Is it the city manager? Is it Maria or who it is? But I want to clarify that, to me, it should be evaluated in the 1 year and it needs to come before council.
Yeah.
I don't want it to where, the mutual agreement is either Maria or within the city. It needs to come before city.
Okay.
The council. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. And I share the same sentiment. I think every contract should be evaluated yearly. And every contract should be evaluated at some point. And I would be happy to send over a contract evaluation form that my organization uses so that we could take a look at it. But maybe some kind of random audit on some of these bills, like every 10th invoice needs to be audited by procurement, that type of safeguard. Mr. Baqueta and Bill, maybe consider that and think about it. Give us some feedback. So we're moving forward with this item. Where are we, Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just real quick. And
yes.
I know, staff is busy, but I know Councilor Montoya sits on the utilities committee to where maybe those committee members, at one of your meetings could randomly, pull, one of those items and say, okay, we want to see if, all these match up. Just a suggestion. I know we've done that in the schools with the finance committee at the schools to where they would randomly pull certain contracts or bills out and kind of audit them within. So just kind of a suggestion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Marquez?
Mayor, Councilor, to my understanding, it comes every year before council with the DAG contract.
Yeah, and there's no issue about that. I just don't know if they're being evaluated properly.
Oh, yes, sir, Mayor. That everybody knew that it does come every year in front of council and mayor and council.
Okay. Where are we, Cassandra? We need a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and move that we award request for proposal 2021-09 for diesel repair services for the city of Las Vegas.
So a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes, with just the comment that we ensure that we're auditing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marquez and Mr. Hiron.
That was
and
the last-
Maria.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Thank you, Mr. Montoya, everybody. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, that was our last business item. Our next is executive session.
Move for adjournment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There's a motion to adjourn by Mr. Montoya. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor
Oh,
Romero,
Okay.
I was going to call for executive, but so no.
Counselor Rodriguez,
I can rescind my motion if you want to do that.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, I know Danelle, I'd like to call for an executive session, but I want to make sure that, so kind of explain kind of how I was told this would be done. So we would be going in to what's a breakout room, and that breakout room would only be the council. And as it wouldn't be Danelle or anybody else, it would be the council. And then from there, if we decide to bring anybody else into the executive session, then they would be given the invite to be put into that room. If you guys are okay with that.
I would not be, Mr. Romero.
What was that?
But I would not be all right with that, but that's okay. I mean, you can take it to a vote.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
we have adjournment on the table. We need to vote. There's been a first and a second.
Okay.
Okay.
If it does not pass, then we can go back and have a motion for executive.
Roll call to adjourn.
Counselor Rodriguez,
No.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I have a tie.
I vote no.
Motion does not carry.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter executive session for personnel matters as permitted by section 10-15-1, I believe it's H7 for the pending litigation.
Okay. Second.
And also H2 for personnel matters.
Okay.
I second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
No.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
I know
excuse me.
Danelle is on here. Danelle, if you could just put the council at this time to the breakout room.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, the second was on who? Ms. Fresquez?
The second was, I'm sorry, the second was Counselor Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will set the breakout room and you guys should get something that says to join it. So I'm going to set it now.
Okay, so the breakout room, you would go to the right-hand corner. There's a triangle, a square, and a circle, and then it says breakout rooms.
I think you'll get something because I'm the one that sets it up. So let's see. Let me hit open rooms and see if you guys get a notice.
Okay.
Yes.
we did.
Okay. And you should be able to see just that you guys will be in there. And then on the top left side, when you're ready to go back into the main call, just click on that. Did you get the invite, Counselor Montoya? Counselor Ulibarri? Did you click join, Counselor Ulibarri? Okay, I believe they went in.
So Cassandra, how do they invite us in if they decide they want somebody in the meeting? They want Scott or?
I told Counselor Romero to either come back into the main room and let me know if he wants me to pull you or Scott into the executive session, or he'll text me.
Okay.
So meanwhile, we will wait.
Yes. I will put you in the call. Okay, Counselor Rodriguez?
I didn't know if I was the only one kicked out, Danielle.
Yeah, I think you were. Let me see.
I'm not sure how this is going, if it's going to work.
I think it will. I just have to edit it. Hold on.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You should get something to join.
Okay.
Did you get it?
No.
Hmm.
I went to a second computer.
Oh, okay. I dropped your name into the executive session.
It says
Nothing's-
breakout rooms are in session, but it's not giving me a join like the previous one. Let me get out of this other one. Maybe it's. I'm not sure how this is going to work, if it will work. Okay. Can you send me another one?
Yeah, let me
Okay.
try. Hold on. Let's see. Try it now.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Scott? Scott, are you there?
Yep.
I'm going to put you into the executive session, okay?
Okay.
Dr. Taylor? I'll be putting you in too, okay? Yeah, they want me to put you in. You're still muted, but
So how do I go? Do I need to do anything?
as soon as I drop your name in, you should get a box that says join.
Okay,
Get it?
got it.
Okay. You're muted, counselor.
Okay, could you add me back on? I guess I pressed.
Okay, I'll throw you in. Hold on.
Okay.
Did the others know how to join back? Maybe not.
Maybe he accidentally hit to get out.
Maybe. I could close it on my end, but I just need to make sure that they're done.
Send him a text.
Okay.
Danielle, could we get back into a breakout? I don't know if the timer kicked us all out.
Yeah, you had said you were ready to come back. So do you want to
no.
go back in?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, hold on.
It's because there was a timer that's a 30 seconds. So
For Cassandra, she already do her dramas.
I took a
So-
nap.
I'll entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
I think Councilor Yulabri was still not in, or
I'm closing it now, so let's see if he's able to click to join.
okay.
There
There
he
it
is.
is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Danielle. We
You're
will get
welcome.
good at this.
All right, here we go.
So with that, Mayor, I make a motion to reconvene to regular session after being in executive session, and like to note for the record that only those matters specified in the motion for closure were discussed and no taken.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr. Counselor Olivari, you're muted.
Just press the microphone. There you go. Yes,
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
and Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
thank you.
With that, Mr. Mayor, I make
And I'll-
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank
right.
you.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
everybody.
Cassandra. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.